Hello everyone and welcome back to our Jus As Pilot YouTube channel. In today's interview, we're gonna talk about the lifestyle of a pilot. And for this, we have Sergio here with us. He's an A320 pilot flying in Greece, and he's gonna tell us a little bit about his schedule and about his lifestyle as an airline pilot. So I hope you all enjoy it, and let's just jump right to it.
Welcome to our Jus As Pilot YouTube channel. Today we have a very special and awesome interview. Mauricio and I are actually physically together for the first time, so that's exciting. And we finally got our Jus As Pilot t-shirts. And today we have Pilot Sergio here with us. Welcome.
Hi, nice to be here.
Awesome, Sergio. So for our first question, I just wanted to know a little bit about you. Please tell us a little bit about your journey as a pilot and where everything started for you. Can you please tell us?
Yeah, sure. So my journey as a pilot, I think, began ever since I was born, from my very early days, because my entire family was involved in aviation. I was exposed to it at a very young age. And I actually have some pictures that my parents show me every now and then about my first toy being an airplane. So ever since I was a little kid, I was exposed to it a lot, and I grew up with this idea of aviation and everything because my father worked in airlines. He was more in management positions. My mother used to be a flight attendant when she was younger. My aunt was a flight attendant, and my uncle was an airline captain. He's now retired. So I was exposed to it from a very young age, and after I finished high school, because I finished high school in around 2004. That's when I graduated. The aviation industry was not so deregulated as it is today. So there weren't that many airlines available, and it was always these mainly flag carriers that had their own scholarship programs to hire pilots. And so I decided to go get a university degree before I got into flying, so I could expose myself to the industry more, learn a lot about it, and learn and basically the ways about how to become a pilot and find flight schools and all this stuff. So I did an aviation management degree in England at a university called London Metropolitan. And it was a 4-year course. It was really nice. I learned a lot about the industry. And once I graduated, I had found my flight school to eventually start flying for my PPL and all that stuff. And so I started doing my PPL in the United Kingdom, in England, in a small flight school. Then I had to stop and do my military service here in Greece because it's mandatory for all males who are over the age of 18. So I did that for a year. And then I went to a flight school in Greece to do my CPL multi-IR and MCC. And I graduated here in a school in northern Greece called Aviation. Then I was out in the job market looking for airlines who wanted to hire a pilot who had no hours. You know, lots of pilots have been there. It was quite difficult because once I graduated, I hit the financial crisis in Europe, and basically no airlines were hiring at the time. It was only basically Ryanair who was hiring and EasyJet. But EasyJet, you had to go through their own cadet scheme through a certain flight school that they hired their first officers from. So I couldn't do that. And stuff in Greece was not really good at that time because the airlines were very reluctant to expand and hire new pilots, basically. So I had a contact in a small airline in Crete, on the island of Crete, here in Greece. And I managed to get myself a job as a dispatcher. So it was an airline called Sky Express, which is today is actually the second biggest airline in Greece. They've expanded a lot and they've become the second biggest airline. And I basically worked as a dispatcher there for about a year. Then I was lucky enough. I found a job flying cargo for an airline called Swift Air on the Metroliner 3. It's a small turboprop which holds 19 passengers at most. And we were flying cargo around, basically mail and cargo just around Greece and the Balkan area. And at the end of 2013, the airline I currently work for, which is called Aegean Airlines, it's the biggest airline in Greece. They underwent a massive expansion. So I was lucky enough to get offered a spot on their type rating course for the 320. And later on, I got hired. So I've been with them for about 7 years now.
Oh, that's great. I like how you mentioned that you started your career in a crisis and you still, I don't know, you still made your way through. And I don't know, right now, probably many young pilots are in the same position with the ongoing.
Yeah, it was really difficult because it was a completely different crisis to what we're in now. But in a way, it was a lot worse then, because having a financial crisis, we were in a situation where we didn't know what was going to happen with aviation for the next couple of years. I mean, of course, aircraft were flying in a more normal manner than they are today. But I mean, in Greece, it was really bad because we didn't know maybe we were going to go out of the euro currency. And in that case, airlines were saying that they were going to cut maybe half of their capacity if that happened. So it was really challenging, and the future was really, really weird. I mean, a lot of my friends and I, we were having endless discussions back then about, what we think is going to happen and what airline might start hiring first and all that stuff. And it was just a vicious circle. It was really difficult. But basically, aviation in Europe started taking off again around 2012. And I was very lucky that the company I work for now, they basically decided and they said, look, either we're going to shrink and we're going to just play it safe, or we need to expand in order to get our market capacity to where we want it. And that's what they did. So I was very lucky. After all those years of having bad luck, I got really lucky. And actually today, it's gotten to a point where just before the pandemic hit, I basically know of no pilots in Greece who I personally know who are without a job. I mean, everyone in Greece got jobs who had finished flight school in those years. So if we take this as an example, maybe I think in the next couple of years, something similar might happen. I hope so.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned you got a management degree in aviation. Did you ever think about using it during these moments of crisis of your career?
To be honest, I haven't had to use it yet. I mean, I haven't gotten to the point where I've had something positive happen in my career simply because of my aviation degree. However, it's helped me a lot personally. I feel that if I hadn't done this degree, I would have been less mature and less ready for the amount of studying that you need to do to become a pilot. And plus that, the years that pass when you do an aviation degree, you get older and you mature, obviously, as a human being and as a professional from that. Now, in the future, I think it will help me eventually. At some point, I think it will help me. I mean, specifically in my job. But until now, it's just given me an education that I'm really fond of.
Yeah, of course. I love that because I always like when when I finished high school, I knew that, for example, in my country, you don't need to have a degree, a college degree to become a pilot. And so people just go to a flight school, get their licenses, and then apply for an airline. And in the US, I knew they do require a degree. Well, at least if you want it. Well, there's different ways, but I mean, airlines like that you have a degree. And I don't know, I was looking at my options, and what convinced me to do a degree is that what you said, like more than the studying and my degree, what my degree says is, I don't know, the mature part of it, like that I grow up as a person, that I learn how to, to have discipline, to study, to everything.
Yeah.
I'm sure that that's what's going to help me in the long run, That's what
it definitely will. It definitely will. And the thing with aviation degrees and pilots is that a lot of people, they tend to think, and a lot of universities, they advertise their degrees as like a golden pill, you know what I mean? That, oh, you get an aviation degree and your career as a pilot is going to go skyrocketing. It's not exactly like that. But if you look at it in the way that you're looking at it, and the way I'm explaining to you now, that it'll help you no matter what. Even if you don't get a specific title with your aviation degree as a pilot, it'll help you, and it'll help you distinguish yourself from others. Definitely, because you have just some education which is more than someone else has. For an example, I have a lot of friends who I finished my course with in England, and they went on to fly for other European airlines. They've actually gotten some like management positions in their airlines through the years because of their degree. Now, this obviously has to do with availability and what the specific airline requires for people to get management positions. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's definitely something good.
It's always a plus.
Yeah, exactly. It's always a plus. Exactly.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the airline I work for, when we saw the ad on the internet that, you know, said all the requirements that you need for to get hired, one of the last things they mentioned was, they said an aviation degree or any university degree will be considered a plus. So
There
yeah.
you go. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, my next question is, how does a typical workday looks like for you?
A typical work day, you mean like what the whole process is of going to work and what happens and all this stuff? Yeah, well, as you know, there's no typical day at work for a pilot, you know. Every day is different. And but basically what happens is that I wake up in the morning or in the afternoon, depending on what time I'm flying. And the first thing I do is I go on my company iPad, and while I'm having my coffee in the morning, and I look at my flight plans for the day. We basically the company gives us iPads that we keep at home, and we take them with us to work, that have all these applications in that we look at our flight plans. We have our charts, our weather data, and all this stuff. And so we basically do a self briefing at home before we go to work. So I read all my NOTAMs, the weather, you know, the flight plan. I look at any peculiarities that the flight for that day might have. And typically the airline I work for, it might be 2 sectors, it might be 4 sectors, and it might even be 6 sectors a day, depending on if it's a domestic day or a combination of domestic and international, or if it's like a longer international flight that takes about 3-4 hours to go and another 3-4 hours to come back. Yeah, then basically I get ready to go to work. I put on my uniform, I get in my car. It's about a 30-minute drive for me to go to the airport here in Athens. And I go there, I check in. We go on our computers at work, and we basically check in to show that we're physically at work. Then I meet my captain, and we'll discuss all the details of the flight together, which basically concludes to us finding a fuel figure for our flight on that day. So we look at the weather together. We discuss any defects that the aircraft might have that might lead us to have to take more fuel or change anything in our flight plan that might be needed. And we decide on a fuel figure. Basically, what we do is we try to take, obviously you have to take the minimum required fuel for every flight. But any additional fuel we take, we look to take fuel that we'll probably use on this flight. So for example, if we're flying to a destination that has forecast for thunderstorms, we might take an extra 30 minutes of holding fuel, because if we go there and there's a thunderstorm over the station, usually thunderstorms, they last for about 30 minutes at most, in most cases. So we'll decide on the fuel figure, and then we go next door to the crew room. We find our cabin crew, and then we do a briefing as a whole crew. And we inform the cabin crew about the flight time, the passenger loads, any peculiarities that the flight might have that they need to know about. And we just have a discussion about the flight in order to form a team, because we're going to be together for the whole day. And yeah, so that's for the briefing complete. Then we go downstairs. We take the crew bus, which takes us to the airplane. We get on board, and the captain and I, who have decided who's going to fly which sector, the pilot flying goes into the flight deck and starts preparing the aircraft. And the pilot monitoring for the first sector goes and does the external walk around of the aircraft. And then, yeah, we basically, everyone does their part on the airplane, passengers board, and then off we go.
We go. Great.
Yeah.
How early
And like,
flight you go to the airport?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
That how early before a flight you go to the airport?
Oh yeah, it's I have to be at the company premises 1 hour and 10 minutes before departure. That's what's written in our for both international and domestic flights. Yeah, it's the same thing. The airline I work for has a couple of bases outside of Athens at more regional airports in Greece. And those airports are a lot smaller. So in those bases, they have to be at the company premises 1 hour before departure.
Okay.
But in Athens, because it's a bigger airport, more traffic and all this stuff, it's 1 hour and 10 minutes. But I typically go about 1 hour and 30 minutes before departure in order to just do some paperwork that I have to do before my captain comes along, so I can have it ready when he or her joins me.
Of course. Well, and you mentioned that you sometimes you have to do a lot of sectors, a lot of legs.
Yeah.
Right. So, have you ever felt like overworked and tired? And I don't know, how many hours are you allowed to fly in your company, or what is the maximum you are allowed to fly?
There's a maximum flight duty period that you're legally allowed to fly. Now, this is quite complicated because in the last, I think, 4 years, EASA, which is the governing body of aviation in Europe, it's the same as the FAA is in the States, for example. They made the flight duty limitations a little bit more complex. So basically, the maximum amount of duty we can have per day is 13 hours. And that means from the check-in time, so the 1 hour and 10 minutes before departure, until half an hour after you set the parking brake on your last sector once you've come back to your home base, that's your duty period. And this is allowed to be 13 hours in the case that you fly 2 sectors.
Okay.
Now, if you fly 2 sectors and your report time is later on in the day, so if you're doing like a 2-sector international flight, which starts at say 5 o'clock in the evening, this limitation goes down because because EASA has thought that if you fly in the evening, you've probably woken up a lot earlier in the day. So by the time you get to work, you've been awake for about maybe 6-7 hours already. So the 13 hours are the maximum allowable if you fly, if your report time is a certain time in the morning. So in normal hours, like 7-8 a.m. Now, the more sectors you do, this reduces your maximum allowable flight duty period, because obviously your fatigue goes up the more sectors you do. So typically in my company, we fly anywhere from about a 4-hour duty period. If we do like just one domestic flight there and back, which happens sometimes, to a maximum of about 12 hours.
Okay.
I've rarely flown more than 12 hours of a duty day. Now, to go back to your question, have I ever felt fatigued? Of course I have. I think every pilot you ask in the world has felt fatigue at one point or another. And I think anyone who works has felt fatigue in any job has felt fatigued. Do I think I've been overworked? No, I don't think I've been overworked in my life, because what do you consider someone being overworked? I mean, what I think is being overworked might be different to what you think is being overworked. It has to do with what mitigation strategies you have as a person to cope with how tired you are at work, and what tools your airline gives you to combat this and to be more resilient towards your fatigue. When I started flying, I didn't know my limits. I didn't know the limits that my schedule had. So I would have long duty days, and then I would go home, and maybe I would go out with some friends, and then I'd have to fly again the next day, for example. But this started to accumulate after a certain amount of time. So I learned what I have to do in order to be well rested and to recover from my fatigue, so to say, from work, in order to be fit for flying the next day and the day after and the day after that. So it's kind of a cycle that you have to learn for yourself and what suits you best.
Right. You mentioned the tools that the airline provides you. So
Yeah.
what does the airline place in your?
Well, a couple of years ago, this thing called FRM became very popular. It's called fatigue risk management. So the airline gave us some training, basically ground school, where they gave us some presentations about what fatigue is, how fatigue happens, and they explained it to us, physiologically, in order for us to understand exactly the signs of actual fatigue and what we can do to mitigate that. And for example, things like recovery sleep. Now, I know that if one day, for example, I have an early report time and I don't sleep 7 or 8 hours before that, I know that when I come home, it's a good idea for me to have a 1 hour sleep in the afternoon, for example, to get that sleep back that I didn't get the night before. Now, this helps for you not to accumulate fatigue in a very in the long run. Also, something that really helps is because sometimes we have what we call red-eye flights, like all-night flights. We might take off from Athens, say 11 o'clock at night, fly somewhere to the Middle East. We might have a 2-hour ground time there, and then we'll board passengers and come back, and we might get back home at like 7 a.m. in the morning. Now, these flights are quite difficult, and because you're flying in a period of time where your body needs to sleep and it's used to being asleep. So a very good strategy is not to eat what we call high glycemic index foods. So you don't want to eat meat, pasta, and stuff like this at 2 o'clock in the morning, because it'll give you a spike in your blood sugar, but then your blood sugar will crash very fast. And that's what will make you feel drowsy after that. So on these night flights, what we try to do is we try to have more fruit, stay hydrated, have like a salad or something like that, which keeps your energy level at an acceptable level, but it will help you not have a crash in your blood sugar, which will then make you feel very, very drowsy and tired. So just things like this, they give us a training about these things, and we're more aware of the things we need to do and not to do in order to combat our fatigue. And of course, we have the opportunity, if we feel fatigued, to file a fatigue report to the company and not go fly on a specific flight. So if I, for example, have a schedule of consecutive 6 a.m. report times, and that for me leads to the 5th day, me not feeling well to go to fly, I can call the company and say I'm fatigued, and I'm legally obligated not to go fly if I feel fatigued. And all I have to do is do a report, and the company's safety department will look into it and look at why I got to being fatigued at that point in order to not be able to go fly. So it's basically a system which is designed to protect the pilot from going and flying without being 100%.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so if we're talking about wellness in pilots, I was wondering, how do you manage your personal life and work?
Um, it's a big balance. Basically, it's a scale which you have to balance on both sides as much as possible. What I try to do is I try to stay healthy, because a healthy body will lead to a healthy mind, for sure. And there's times in the summer months where we fly a lot. I mean, I might go to work 22 days in 1 month, in the summer months, and fly. I actually have to fly 22 days a month, which is not a lot if you think about it. I mean, it's how most people work, about 22 days a month. But if you take into consideration that sometimes we might have to fly 5 or 6 days consecutively, after a while, this does build up. And it gets to a point where if you have long duty days, you may basically get home, take off your uniform, relax, have something to eat, and then you need to go to sleep again, because the next day you have to fly again, basically after 13 or 14 hours. So this does get kind of tiring, and it takes away from your private life a lot. And my fiance, when she used to work as a flight attendant, there were days where she would work in the morning, I would work in the afternoon, and we basically wouldn't see each other for like 2 days at home at all. So it does kind of take its toll on your private life, but you have to manage that in certain ways. So what I do is I basically took advantage of my seniority as a first officer after a certain amount of time, and I asked my scheduler if I can fly more flights in the afternoon rather than in the morning, because I found that works better for me, for my lifestyle, for my needs, and that was okay with the scheduling department. So that's something I did for me in order to keep my private life a bit more as I like it, because personally I don't like going to sleep very early, so I can't go to sleep at like 10 p.m. So that led to me being more fatigued if I flew a lot of morning flights, because I wouldn't get that 7 or 8 hours of sleep that you need. So that's what I do. I fly in. I request to fly in the afternoon or the evening as much as possible. And the most important thing is that you need to learn your limits, and that comes with experience, obviously. So I learned after a while that I need to get rest the days that I'm flying, so I can not need to get all the rest on my days off. Okay. So then I can enjoy my days off and do some things that I need to do in order to, de-stress from work and, take my mind off my job. Because no matter how much we love aviation, and I'm sure, most pilots do, 99.9% of them absolutely love their jobs, you need your mind to get to something different every now and then, because otherwise you'll just become saturated. And I think that applies to every single job in the world, not only aviation.
Of course.
I agree.
So going off of what you just said about getting your mind off of it, I was wondering, do you practice any like mental care routine or self-care routine, like something that doesn't involve like your body physically, but your, I don't know, how you feel mentally? Do you do anything? Do you care about it?
Yeah, I haven't gotten to the point, even though a lot of colleagues of mine say it is good. I have a lot of colleagues who do yoga as their exercise, and they say it really helps. It relaxes them. It's good for the body and mind. I haven't gotten to that point yet. I haven't tried out yoga or anything like yoga, for example. But what I do is I turn to my hobbies. I have some hobbies. I like sports. I like to take long walks with my dog. I have some hobbies that I have with my fiance that we have together. And I look to do these things on my days off or in my during my rest time in between flights, because I find that it helps me kind of de-stress from work. And when I mean stress, I don't mean that you're stressed like you're biting your fingernails. I mean that because it's a demanding job. It's a job that needs you to have your attention on it for long periods of time. It builds up every now and then, and you need to kind of, get your mind off work and relax and do something which is basically just fun for you. So that's what I do. And I found that the healthier that I eat and the more I exercise and the more I do things outdoors, the better it is for my mind as well. And that also helps me recover faster from fatigue and all these things we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
Now, everyone has a different routine for this. As I said, a lot of people like to do yoga. A lot of people like to go swimming. I have some friends who like to go mountain climbing. This is what de-stresses them and helps them, clear their mind and all this stuff. So I think it's just important for everyone to find their own routine that helps for them. And it's also a routine that works for this specific part of your life.
Of course.
This may change along the years.
Of course.
Yeah,
Totally.
of course. Yeah, I'm sure that you're super busy all the time with work, but it's so important to, have some time for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones, and for life in general, because that's what it's about, right?
Yeah, I mean, and this whole situation with the pandemic now has, we're not flying nearly as much as we were before. I think only pilots that fly for cargo airlines are flying more than they were before. It's also given us some time to, relax from work and have a more steady schedule at work and, not work so much. And it's given me the opportunity now to find even more things that I like doing in my personal time, which I think I will continue doing later on when I start flying to, maximum hours again.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you again for being here with us and for chatting with us about mental health in pilots and your life in general. I think it's an amazing perspective. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been great to see you guys also. As personal as it can be, from a video call.
We can do in-person interviews in the near future.
Yeah, sure. Anytime you want. Anytime.
As long as you invite us to Greece.
Look, things here are going quite well, and it's a country which is based on tourism, and it's very nice. Lots of nice beaches, lots of nice food. So anytime you guys come to this side of the world, it would be my pleasure to have you guys.
Yeah, okay, hopefully we'll see you as a captain too soon.
Hopefully, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, yeah, thank you for being here, and thank you for our watchers. I'm sure that they will enjoy this interview as much as we did. And
my pleasure.
To follow him on Instagram. He's on Instagram as @pilot.sergio07. And we are on Instagram as @Jus As Pilot and our Facebook as Jus As Pilot. And don't forget to subscribe and like our video, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.